From folklore and fairies
to monsters and mysteries, it came from the Maritimes.
1, 2, Evan's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. Here's my co-host, Evan.
If you've got a taste for terror, take her to the prom. My co-host, Chelsea.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to It Came From The Maritimes. As you could probably tell from my out-of-tune intro for Evan, I have zero musical talent personally, but folk songs have intrigued me for a very long time. In our past episodes on the Dungarvan Hooper and the ghost ship of the Northumberland Strait, I've mentioned the folk songs inspired by the local legends. This past year, I read a book I had been eagerly anticipating called Murder Ballads, written by Katy Horan. I became familiar with this artist after she designed the artwork for my favorite Oracle deck, the Literary Witches deck, which, Evan, I'm pretty sure you're the person who gifted me this.
I think so.
Yeah. So in the book Murder Ballads, she discusses 20 different murder ballads, each one accompanied by a truly gorgeous and haunting illustration. I was genuinely delighted reading the book when I discovered that a couple of the ballads were collected by someone from Newfoundland. It encouraged me to start diving deeper into the world of East Coast murder ballads, and I was hooked. Evan, have you ever heard of a murder ballad before?
I'd say vaguely. I think I've heard some of them, but not necessarily thought of it as a theme or a genre of music until you brought it up.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to be saying the word murder many times in this episode, so I hope we don't get flagged.
I was about to say we're going to get taken down.
So, a murder ballad is a narrative song which is traditionally passed orally through the generations. Many of the earliest murder ballads date back to Europe during the Renaissance, and they were brought to North America as folks from England, Scotland, and Ireland immigrated here. Folk singers would modify the songs to change the location sung about to their hometown, or maybe they would change the name to one more common to their region. The characters and plot points in each murder ballad were often changed by the singers based on cultural norms at the time. It's also very possible that murder ballads evolved because the singers either misheard or misremembered sections they had only heard once, so they would add their own words to replace these parts. Often these ballads were shared at social get-togethers, where, and this is one thing I absolutely love about folklore in general, people would hear the songs and add new verses and melodies to put their own little touch on the song. And this would allow the ballads to evolve with each retelling, kind of like that game Telephone. So one point Katy Horan brings up in her book, which I found interesting, is that murder ballads might even evolve over time because of a singer's inherent biases. For example, if an original ballad placed the killer in a sinister light, but after hearing the tale, the singer believed that the killer was actually in fact innocent, the singer might consciously or even subconsciously change the tone or lyrics to favor that perspective. So what do you think, Evan?
I think that's really interesting, and I agree with that point. And even the subconscious part of, if someone just sings in a slightly different voice or a different kind of background music, there's so many different things that you could change that could change the whole attitude of the song, I guess, based on how you feel about it, or consciously or not, and sometimes even just maybe even against your own judgment.
Oh, it's so true, and it even made me reflect on the stories I tell because, of course, if you haven't noticed over the years of this podcast, I tend to gravitate towards ghost stories that involve gray lady ghosts or lost graves, things like that. And for me, I tend to be quite sympathetic to the females in these stories. So I tell them from that perspective, whereas someone else telling the story might even paint some of these spirits as more malevolent, depending on how they view them.
This is going to be a little bit of a stretch, but when a lot of episodes of Scooby-Doo, they're gradually learning about the ghosts, especially the movie ones, and they're like, oh, maybe the ghost is the good guy.
Right? That's it. There's layers to these people and stories that develop over the years.
You guys come talk to me about Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
That's Evan's next podcast. Murder ballads tend to reveal the state of society at a time. For example, many traditional murder ballads were not sung with let's say, a particularly feminist lens in mind. The lyrics in these more narrow-minded historical tunes imply that murdered women deserved what they got because they were leading men on or they had loose morals by pursuing a lover. Certainly not ideal, but it does reveal how folks viewed women at the time and in some cases might still. On that note, in most murder ballads, the topic does tend to be a woman who loses her life at the hand of a lover. or someone who is jealous because a woman has taken a lover. These folk songs were typically used as cautionary tales for young women who might be inclined to follow their impulses and pursue their passions instead of more traditional female roles. This concept kind of reminds me of the Corpse Bride plot where, well, there's a lot of tunes in that movie talking about a young girl who pursued her love and lost her life as a result of it. Sorry for a spoiler for a very old movie.
Yeah, and I get you. And it is like a moral tale, but not necessarily one that would match modern morals, I guess.
Exactly. Now, a lot of these folk songs were historically inspired by very real murders, but they were sung about with fantastical themes to make them more acceptable to talk about. Murder ballads originated in a time before true crime was a commonly accepted interest. It allowed people to discuss nefarious topics such as love affairs and murders without being judged by others. I feel like murder ballads are proof that folks have always been drawn to the macabre and mysterious. They historically were a way to share a story, process grief and tragedy, and impart a lesson to folks, especially a lesson surrounding the more sinister topics. Murder ballads are not just songs from the past, and there's actually been quite a few recent songs released which follow the tradition of murder ballads, using music to share the story of a tragedy. Today, I'm going to focus on the ballads that tell sad tales from back in the day. That being said, if anyone does have recommendations for modern Canadian murder ballads to listen to, please do let me know. And I just want to say today, we're not even skimming the surface of Atlantic Canadian murder ballads. There's quite honestly hundreds, if not thousands, if not more. So if you do enjoy this topic and you'd love to hear more about folk songs in general, please let us know and we would love to revisit it in the future. Or at least I would. Evan can confirm at the end of the episode. And as much as I would love to share these songs in the episode, I really don't want to risk infringing on any copyright issues. A lot of the songs are very old, but the versions that we have access to are sung by modern singers, so I don't want to affect that. I will be trying to share them on social media as possible, or I'll include the names of the songs in the show notes so you can seek them out yourselves. All right, so we're going to be exploring one song from each Atlantic Canadian province, so let's start with Newfoundland. One of the folklorists mentioned in the book Murder Ballads was Maud Karpeles. I apologize if I mispronounced that. So it sounds like Maud Karpeles was essentially the Helen Creighton of Newfoundland. From 1929 onwards, Maud collected almost 200 folk songs in Newfoundland on behalf of the English Folk Dance and Song Society. It was done in an effort to trace the legacy of traditional British folk songs in North America. One song she collected was called The Bloody Gardener. Charming title, I know. Now, in this song, a mother is ashamed when her rich son falls in love with a lowly shepherd's daughter. The mother arranges to have her son's lover murdered by the gardener, and the gardener buries her in a flower bed. When the rich man looks for his beloved, all he finds is a white dove whose breast turns red, and the young man interprets that as an omen of what must have occurred. The rich son then takes his own life so he can be with the shepherd's daughter. This song is actually traced back to Scotland as far back as 1769. It made its way to Atlantic Canada with Scottish immigrants and was collected in 1929 by Mark Karpeles in Conception Bay, Newfoundland, where it was sung by May McCabe. It has been covered by many musicians since. Now, what I found interesting is that the version recorded in Newfoundland compared to versions collected elsewhere of The Bloody Gardener, the one in Newfoundland actually has a supernatural element. The breast of the dove that the rich son sees isn't simply a shade of red, but it starts to bleed. So here is a verse, which I will not be singing because, as I mentioned before, I have a truly atrocious singing voice. So the verse goes, "He said, my pretty dove, what makes you so sad? Or have you lost your love as I have mine? When down from a tree so tall, down on her grave did fall, she drooped her wings and shook her head and bled fresh from the breast." So, thoughts, concerns?
A very sad one, very Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
I apologize, I got a little distracted because I actually recently learned of a type of bird called a Luzon bleeding heart or a bleeding heart pigeon, which is actually a pigeon that's native to the Philippines. And it has a spot in the middle of its chest that's blood red.
Like, it really does look like it's like a gash.
Like
it's not just red, it's like...
It has a white breast and like otherwise it's kind of grayish blue on its back, but it looks as if it had been shot right through the chest, which is a very disconcerting thing to see from a wild animal.
Oh, it is, but I wonder if that inspired this song at some point.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I was wondering if that could be in any way related.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
But overall, like, such a tragic, sad story. But like I said, very like Romeo, Juliet, that type of thing.
Yes. Our next stop on our murder ballad journey is going to take us to Nova Scotia, where our local folklore icon, Helen Creighton, collected numerous folk songs over the years. She was apparently known to show up at folk musicians' homes dragging a melodeon, which is a small organ, in a wheelbarrow. And I know our grandmother actually told us a story about how there was a family she used to stay with in Stewiacke, I believe, and the man was a folk singer, and Helen Creighton showed up to record his songs at one point.
Yeah, I think that recently the Helen Creighton Society, they might even have a book out of some of her folk songs that she's collected.
Yes, and the Helen Creighton Society, they do like a trad music night at the Dartmouth Heritage Museum, which it's been on my bucket list of something to check out for ages, but definitely check out their social media so you can stay up to date on their events. Yeah, so one song that Helen Creighton recorded was The Two Sisters, which has also been known over the centuries as the Twa Sisters, and it's another popular murder ballad. This song has been dated back to the 17th century in the UK, but there's actually versions that were recorded in Scandinavian countries, so it might have origins there as well. So it tells a tale of two sisters who fall in love with the same man, and this man ultimately prefers the younger, prettier sister. So one day, when the two sisters are walking by a river, the eldest sees an opportunity, and she drowns her younger sister, leaving her body in the water. The body is then found by a musician who, instead of reporting the corpse, as you would typically hope someone would do, he uses the body parts of the drowned sister to make a fiddle.
Of course.
Like, who wouldn't have that impulse? So the thing is, this isn't an average fiddle. The drowned sister's bones imbue the fiddle with magic, so when it's played, it will only play one tune, and that is a tune which tells the sad tale of the murder.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is. So here are a few of the verses. Down the road came a fiddler fair, oh, the wind and rain. He took 30 strands of her long yellow hair, crying, oh, the dreadful wind and rain. He made a fiddle bow of her long yellow hair, oh, the wind and rain. Made a fiddle bow of her long yellow hair, crying, oh, the dreadful wind and rain. He also makes fiddle pegs with her finger bones, and he uses her breastbone to form the body of the fiddle. So one thing about this song that I find very cool is there's over 500 versions that have been recorded over the years, but there's one that's a Scottish Gaelic version in which the older sister kills her sister not by just drowning her, but by tying her hair to a rock so she drowns slowly as the tide comes in. Evan, I know you've also read The Lunenburg Werewolf. One of the stories within that book is a variation of this tale, so it shows how these evolve over time.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
I forget exactly what it's called, but honestly, I loved it, so I'm probably going to cover it in a mini in the future.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah. That musician, he didn't just take the hair, he took the whole thing apart. He was going for it.
Yeah, he took liberties. Now, our next ballad is not necessarily recent, but a little more recent compared to the first two I discuss, and this one is from Prince Edward Island. And this one is about an actual murder that took place in Malpeque Bay, which is an Acadian community near Cabot Beach. So this murder was committed in 1812, and it was the first crime of that magnitude within that community, so it had a huge impact. So the song either goes by the name Xavier Gallant, which was the name of the murderer, or, pardon my French, Le Meurtrier de sa femme, which places the emphasis more on the murdered wife. Now, these first two murder ballads we discussed that were recorded in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, they were very old songs where we don't actually know the identities of the folks involved or if the events actually occurred, if they were just essentially like fables.
Mm-hmm.
But this song I found interesting because it is based on a specific Prince Edward Island murder. So Gallant murdered his wife with an axe in what he called afterwards a fit of insanity. He hid her body under a pile of leaves in the woods on his property. He hid his crime for days by feigning innocence and actually leading and initiating search parties. But the pressure got to him and he tried to run away. Luckily, one of his cousins caught him and forced him to confess. Apparently, Gallant had been dealing with delusions for some time that his wife was a witch and that she was trying to steal his money and had bewitched the family dog to attack him. Gallant was sentenced to be hanged, and he was supposed to be held in the Charlottetown jail until his execution date, but he ended up dying before then because of health issues due to the poor conditions during his imprisonment. So, as it happens with these tales, the story evolves over time, And some renditions of this ballad actually give Gallant supernatural powers or accuse him of being a pirate. So
on equal terms.
Right, that's it. These things, the stories change. Now, the murder ballad was transcribed in French, but here are a few translated verses I found. There was a man who was a pagan, to his poor wife he met his end. He is always armed, at night lying in the attic. He is armed with an axe, and also with a poker. For God's sakes, my brothers, come and relieve me. Share my sorrows, for I fear the danger. One day he said to his wife, I have a great desire, to go to the top of my field. Will you come with me? He took her, led her to the foot of a tree. He was so cruel that he laid her in the grave. So, like I said, it would flow a little smoother in French, but I cannot pronounce ours, which are very important in French. So I decided to share the translated version.
No, I think it gets the point across very well, though.
Thank you.
I had to pause for a second because when I was researching one of my upcoming topics, it actually had a very similar story, but I think it was from a lighthouse keeper.
Oh, interesting. There's a lot of history in our Atlantic Canadian provinces for them being relatively new in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It might have been more like in Maine or something, though, so I'll need to see.
Yeah, ooh, well, I'm excited
you'll find out soon.
Excellent. Now, the last murder ballad we'll discuss today is from New Brunswick, and it's called The Death of Maggie Vale. It's about the murder of a young girl, which occurred in St. John in 1868. This story has an air of poetic justice, which I personally loved, because the murderer was a popular architect from the area who ended up hanging from the gallows that he had designed himself.
Oh, geez.
So this story was transcribed by Kenneth Peacock and sung by Emma McCready from St. John. Helen Creighton actually recorded another version of this song known as Munro's Confession in 1954, which was included in her book Folksongs of Southern New Brunswick. This song tells the sad tale of Maggie Vale, a young unmarried woman who was pursued relentlessly by the married architect, John Munro. An affair ensued, but when Maggie Vale became pregnant and gave birth to their child, the architect wanted to hide his misdeeds, and he murdered both his lover and his child, hiding the remains at the nearby Black River Plains, where their bodies were soon found. And luckily, he was convicted of the crime. Here are a few verses from the original tune. The bones and clothing that were found were gathered up and brought to town. An inquest held on the remains of those who were found on the Black River Plains. The jury found it very plain. Miss Vale and the baby had been slain. The cruel wretch, he did the deed, and left them there for wild beasts to feed.
It gets the point across, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that's definitely quite literal. It's not like insinuating the misdeeds.
No, that's the thing. I'm kind of like, what do I say to that? It's like, yeah, that's pretty dark.
Yeah, it's not like The Bloody Gardener where it's a little like, the language is a little more flowery.
No, this one gets right to the point.
It does. So there we are, a murder ballad from each Atlantic Canadian province. Like I said, I tried to include a couple that were traditional ballads brought to North America and a couple inspired by local events to show the range that these sad songs can cover. So I know that we did cover a lot of sad tales today, so I wanted to end this episode on a lighter note. I love a good quiz, so I'm going to quiz Evan and see if he recognizes a few spooky fun songs based on their lyrics. Once again, I will not sing, and I'm not going to play the songs because I don't want to infringe on copyright issues, so I will be verbally reading these lyrics. And Evan, you need to tell me what the song is.
Okay.
Out from his coffin, Drax's voice did ring. Wow. Seems he was troubled by just one thing. He opened the lid and shook his fist and said, "Whatever happened to the Transylvania twist?"
I think that maybe you're doing the mash. It was the Monster Mash.
You better believe it. By Bobby Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kickers from 1962.
I never knew the name of the band, but that's a great name.
It's a great name. There actually is a song called the Transylvania Twist, too. They had a whole, monster theme.
Whew.
Something to check out next October, folks.
Exactly.
Or earlier if you're like me and start listening to Halloween tunes in July.
Allie's a big fan of Hotel Transylvania, so maybe next time she's watching that.
She'll love it. All right, our next one. This might be a little less easy to guess. I can't seem to face up to the facts. I'm tense and nervous and I can't relax. I can't sleep 'cause my bed's on fire. Don't touch me, I'm a real live wire.
As you read that, I just imagined it to the tune of the Monster Mash.
Fa 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 fa. Does that make it easier?
I am the worst person for this. I literally don't listen to music.
How about this one? Psycho Killer, Qu'est-ce que c'est?
I'm gonna guess Psycho Killer?
Yes, by the Talking Heads, 1977.
I did not know that was a song.
Oh, well, we're going to be playing it as soon as we finish recording this episode. All right, this next one we'll see if Evan gets. It's just a jump to the left and then a step to the right. Put your hands on your hips and bring your knees in tight.
It would be something from Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Yep.
right? I don't know a particular song name, but like that.
Let's do
Time
the-
Warp.
Yes, you got it.
Yes. I've never actually seen that movie, but I've seen like enough homages to that movie that
We actually watched it once when we were unpacking our candy from trick-or-treating. We were probably a little young to
I was about to say.
understand.
I think I was too lost in the sauce of the candy.
We used to do some pretty epic candy swaps on Halloween, so Evan was making sure I didn't rip them off.
I was about to say, I was probably there with my like green visor doing some accounting. It's like, okay, you've got 2 Almond Joys. That's only worth 1 Reese's cup.
He was a stern negotiator on the Halloween candy swap. We had a rule. Evan was like, no, a bag of chips is worth at least 3 mini bars. So this one I hope you will get. If it's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters.
Ray Parker Jr., 1984.
That might be one of the few songs that is still downloaded to my phone.
That and that one U2 Christmas song from...
Yeah.
All right, just one more song. It's close to midnight. Something evil's lurking in the dark. Under the moonlight, you see a sight that almost stops your heart.
Thriller?
Yes, you got it.
I only know this because there was a TV show I was watching the other day where they had like a thriller sequence.
Well, that was very timely.
It was.
All right, well, thank you so much for indulging me with yet another quiz. Much appreciated. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Evan, I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about murder ballads.
I did.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of It Came From The Maritimes. You can find us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at It Came From The Maritimes, on Blue Sky at ICFT Maritimes. And if you have any Atlantic Canada folklore you would love to see covered in a future episode, or any spooky encounters of your own, please email us at itcamefromthemaritimes@gmail.com. We're also on Patreon, so check us out if you want bonus content. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review to help other folklore lovers find us. So, as always, we like to end each episode with a folklore tip. Evan, do you have a musically themed superstition for us to end this episode on?
I do. Today's folklore tip is that it's bad luck to whistle backstage before a performance.
Luckily, I never learned how to whistle. Neither has Evan. Thanks for listening.
Bye.